All right, what's up? This is To The Rack. My name is Danny Keeler, and today we're going to be breaking down the San Antonio Spurs' victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder this past Saturday. The Spurs defeat the Thunder 111-109 in the NBA Cup Western Conference semifinal. All right, so the San Antonio Spurs defeat the Oklahoma City Thunder 111-109, and this was a great game. It was not the cleanest or mistake-free game by any means. There were turnovers, missed shots, some ugly quarters from each of the teams, second possessions from offensive rebounds. Victor Wembanyama, it was his first game back from injury in a little while, and he was on a minutes restriction. He only played a little over 20 minutes. I think it was around like 20 minutes. On NBA.com, it said like 20 minutes and 39 seconds. So what I wanted to start off with is probably, I'm going to get to the most important stretch of the game, and then, I'll circle back and kind of talk about different stretches of the game, how the game started and unfolded. But really, the most important stretch of this game was the last few minutes in the second quarter. The Spurs were down 47-31. Wembanyama was not in the game. San Antonio calls a timeout with 3 minutes and 52 seconds left in the second quarter, and they come out of their timeout with Wemby checking back into the game. And then the rest of the quarter goes as follows. So on offense, Harrison Barnes draws a foul. He makes 2 free throws. Then the Thunder's next trip down, Aaron Wiggins misses a 3. Then the Spurs' next trip down, they have a turnover. Then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander later hits a mid-range. And then the Spurs and OKC kind of trade possessions for the next couple possessions. And then De'Aaron Fox makes a layup. He scored on coming off like an off-ball screen from the top of the key. That was definitely a theme for the Spurs in this game. Getting some of their ball handlers moving off ball before catching it, kind of getting them going downhill. And they were able to get some downhill action going against the Thunder, which I thought was pretty impressive. And then after that, Isaiah Hartenstein on the Thunder had like an off-ball offensive foul on Wemby, I think, just trying to like push him and get position. And then there was a screen, and Fox got Hartenstein switched on to him. De'Aaron Fox hits a 3. I'm not sure why Hartenstein is switching on to De'Aaron Fox. I think the screen was maybe with Harrison Barnes, and Harrison Barnes did not shoot well this game. So if anything, if Dort, he couldn't get over the screen. If anything, Hartenstein, I think, just needs to like help a lot on Fox and then have Dort chase and get back to him. And then if Barnes gets an open catch and shoot 3 or a drive, then I think you kind of live with that. Especially, I know Barnes was, coming off making some free throws maybe like a little bit earlier after the timeout, but still, I would have liked to see them just like play tighter on Fox on that play. But nevertheless, Fox hits that 3, and then the score that brings it to 49-38. Then Shai turns it over. Then De'Aaron Fox comes down and draws a foul. He makes 1 free throw. Then the next time down, OKC missed a 3. Hartenstein gets the offensive board. Shai then is able to get to his mid-range, but that's blocked by Devin Vassell. Then right after that, Shai fouls Vassell. Devin Vassell gets 2 free throws. Then the Spurs force a turnover. Dylan Harper gets a fast break layup that brings it to 49-43. Then Jalen Williams, J-Dub of the Thunder, misses a mid-range. Then Wemby comes down. He works the clock a little bit. He's dribbling like near the logo. He has Hartenstein on him. There's a lot of space. And, I think with about 13.7 seconds left. So Wemby, he has a lot of space. He's dribbling, and he just walks into a deep 3 and makes it and cuts it to a 3-point lead for the Thunder. So 49-46 with 13.7 seconds left in the quarter. And then the Thunder on their ensuing offensive possession aren't able to convert or get a score. I think Hartenstein had a floater in like the little mid-range close area, and he missed it. So that's how the quarter ended. And the Spurs, just to give you some context, the Spurs in that quarter scored 11 points up until that 3:52 mark. That 3:52 mark on after their timeout, they scored 15 points in the final 3 minutes and 52 seconds. So really impressive run there from San Antonio. The Thunder, missing shots, some turnovers. Obviously, when I said Shea got blocked, that was an impressive play from Devin Vassell. And then the Spurs able to take advantage of getting to the free throw line, converting in transition. So I think that was definitely a turning point in the game, the turning point in the game. Now, I'll say prior to that stretch, the Spurs did not have much going. Wembanyama did not play in the whole first quarter. He's on a minutes restriction, it seems. So, the game was trending very much towards OKC before that run. And the Spurs scored just 20 points in the first quarter. The score at the end of the first quarter was 31-20 Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 10 points in the first quarter, so him scoring half of the Spurs' total points. And, the Spurs were just off shooting-wise early. They were missing a lot of shots. They were 2 for 14 from 3 in the first quarter, which is 14%. And, just for reference, the Spurs shoot nearly 37% on the season. Yeah, but the next 3 quarters after that, quarters 2 through 4, the Spurs combined for 11 for 28 from 3, which is 39%, which is a pretty good number considering the top team in the league, 3-point percentage, according to NBA.com. And all these stats are from NBA.com. The number 1 team in the league for 3-point percentage are the Milwaukee Bucks at 40%. So really good 3 quarters shooting from the Spurs there. And also to start off the game, I said Shai got off to a good start. A lot of that is attributed to, the Spurs were just kind of playing drop coverage, having when the Thunder would do a ball screen with their center and Shai having the ball. The Spurs would have Luke Kornet kind of back, not playing too far up on the screen, kind of back, like containing the paint. And that just left Shai to come off against some open middies. And he got going, but he scored just 2 points in the second quarter, and then he bounced back in the third with 11 points, and then had 6 points in the fourth quarter. So, other than the second quarter, Shai had a pretty consistent game. OKC also in that second quarter, I should mention they were 8 for 25 from the field and 0 for 7 from 3. So only 18 points in that quarter. So overall, the second quarter, OKC just didn't have a great scoring output, and then on top of that, the Spurs had that run, and that run, really just flipped the game on its head, and really the Spurs got back into it. And then the second half was back and forth after that. The Spurs outscored them 65-60 in the second half. So a back and forth game, and you can see the concerted effort on OKC's part to just be very physical with Wemby. Wemby, I think he had about he had 22 points in almost 22 minutes in this game, but he had, I believe he had 15 points in the fourth quarter. So up until that fourth quarter, Wemby was really not a huge factor. Definitely on defense he was, and offensively he didn't have a crazy scoring output. So yeah, Wemby had a big fourth quarter. He had 15 points. He was 7 from 10 from the free throw line. And 0 3-point attempts in that fourth quarter. They were really focusing on getting him the ball in the middle of the floor. And like I said, even with OKC's physicality, that some of that led to Wemby getting free throws and things like that. So Wemby, really good fourth quarter there. So I thought Wemby handled the physicality from OKC well. The Spurs overall, I thought they handled it well. They were able. What I noticed is they were definitely able to get downhill against the Thunder. And their trio of Fox, Castle, and Harper, Fox and Castle being the starters, Dylan Harper coming off the bench, I think they rotate those guys and keep them fresh. So kind of just mix-matching them, and getting some off-ball actions. Really just since the Thunder were playing drop coverage and not switching, then that means the guy has to chase you over screens, either over screens or under screens on off-ball. So if he goes under, then you can kind of flare and catch for an open 3. If he goes over, then you get him chasing, you get to go downhill. So especially with the quickness and speed of some of the Spurs guards, like Fox, very fast. Harper can get to the basket. Castle really is assertive getting to the basket. Castle actually had 14 points in the paint in this game. I do want to say that I really like his assertiveness and aggression of getting to the rim. And he can hit a 3 as well if you give him space and lay off of him, but he's really kind of seems like an inside out player trying to get to the basket. If you sag off of him, he can hit a three. So I really like his game as well. Devin Vassell, someone else in this game, just hitting threes, playing defense. He had 23 points in this game. He played really well. I will say on the Thunder side, something that does stick out of, an advantage of theirs is just Shea's ability to consistently just get to his spot in the mid-range at, the level he does. And I would say their defensive swarming on Wemby, obviously, he got to the free throw line. But, with a guy like that, you got to be physical with him, and you got to test the refs and see what they're going to call or not call. This is Oklahoma City's second loss of the season. They are 24-2 now. And I just think this is an interesting development here. The Spurs, they have a pretty solid roster. Obviously, Wemby getting back and working his way back. And as he, logs more minutes over the next few weeks, you will see when he, makes a jump to being inserted into the starting lineup again. But it's also important to note that we're going to see these teams play again, twice again this month. So they play on the 23rd of December, and then they also play again on Christmas. So I think the next one is in San Antonio, and I believe Christmas Day is going to be in Oklahoma City. So in those matchups, I think what I'll be looking for is, can OKC wall off the Spurs more and just keep them from getting to the paint? And can they figure out how to deal with Wemby operating in the middle a little bit more? 15 in the fourth quarter. Something else I would like to note is the Thunder in this game were 9 for 37 from three, and they average 14 made threes a game in the season. So 5 threes shy of their average. So, if they have a better shooting night against this Spurs team, we'll be able to see how the Spurs react, especially with their youth. Do they get discouraged by Oklahoma City having a good shooting night, or do they stay locked in on defense and kind of stay disciplined and stay with the game plan? So I think that'll be interesting as well. All right, so before we get out of here, just some final stat lines that I don't think I touched on. We talked about Wemby, Shea, talked about Devin Vassell. De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle each had 22 points, so good production out of them. And yeah, all in all, really impressive win for the Spurs in a game that has stakes. And I think the Thunder, they had it on the broadcast, the Thunder were tied with the Warriors for the best start in NBA history record-wise. So definitely a game with stakes. So NBA Cup is on the line. The Thunder, if they won, they would have had the best start in NBA history for a team. So Thunder, second loss of the season. They're now 24-2. Spurs win, and the Spurs will move on to take on the Knicks on this Tuesday in the NBA Cup final. All right, that will do it for today's episode. My name is Danny Keeler, and that was episode 5 of To The Rack. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next one.